Well, hello, you guys. Once again, my name is Diana Vasquez. I'm your English teacher, and welcome to our third session. Today, we are going to start talking about one of my favorite topics of all time, so I hope you are just as excited. We are going to be covering food. And so, before we start the lesson and I start sharing screen with you, as I usually do, I need you to have ready your materials for today's class. So remember that you need paper and pen. This is for note taking when we're covering vocabulary. Remember that we have different steps for our vocabulary. So we have note taking, that is the first one. We are going to be working with pronunciation. So I'm going to be pronouncing the word twice. And then I trust that you guys are pronouncing the word at home as well. We need to establish real life connections. So for today, since we're going to be talking about food, I want you to think of things that you can connect with food. So first and most important, I would like you to think, or yes, try to say how you feel about this item. So do you like it, or maybe you don't like it? And also a different way to establish real life connections with food specifically is that you can think of the description of the food. Okay, so what color is it? How does it feel? Is it healthy? Is it not? I mean, there is many possibilities. There are many possibilities that you can follow to do this. So just try to think of as many things as possible, because the more connections you make, the easier it's going to be for you to remember the name of the food. So that is for establishing real life connections. And the other one is definitions. Remember that you're supposed to be building definitions of the vocabulary I'm presenting you with. That's also going to help you with your, to widen your vocabulary in your brain. So, okay, is it a vegetable? Is it a protein? Anything you can come up with to define this vocabulary I'm presenting you with. So with me, I'm just gonna be drilling the pronunciation, and you should be taking notes, making real life connections, and providing definitions for each of the items, okay? So we are going to start, guys, that's for vocabulary, and then we're gonna cover grammar. So at this point, let me share screen with you. Okay, and we are going to start covering our presentation for today. Okay. There we go. So I'm also sending you this, of course, as a PowerPoint presentation. You should also have received a PDF document that I sent with the explanation of the grammar, and maybe you can use this later to follow my explanation. You have there some examples and everything, so I think that will be fine. But let's go with the learning objectives. So for today, we have two learning objectives. The first one is to identify food using the appropriate vocabulary. Again, you have the picture and the word. I'm going to repeat the word twice, and I trust that you are repeating the word twice as well and following the steps I already mentioned. Number two, to identify and sort count and non-count nouns. So our grammar for today, just our second learning objective, our second learning objective is always related to grammar. So at this point, you might not know the difference between count and non-count nouns. So when we get there, we'll talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to try to give you some tips for you to identify them more easily. Okay, so let's start with our vocabulary. And our first item for today is milk. Milk. So, note taking, we already did the drilling. How do you feel about milk? Do you like it? You don't? And then the definition. From what animal or animals it comes from, and all that stuff. Okay, second item. Bread. Bread. Third, cheese. One more time, cheese. Number 4, fruit. Again, fruit. Number 5. Number 5 is not coming up. Okay, number 5, veggies. Again, veggies. Now, before we continue, some people say veggies, other people say vegetables. Both of the names are correct. Vegetables is actually the proper name and veggies is the more familiar name. But you can use either one. So what I think with vocabulary, the most important part about vocabulary is not which term you're going to choose, which word you're going to choose over the other one. That's completely up to you. The important thing about vocabulary is to be familiar with the different terms. So when you find a speaker that uses a different word, you can still understand what that person is saying. Okay, so you can say veggies or you can say vegetable, that is completely fine. My point is you have to be able to understand that veggies and vegetables are the same word. Okay, next one. Water. Again, water. The following one, soup. Soup. Rice. One more time, rice. Cereal. Cereal. Eggs. Eggs. Crackers. Crackers. Cookies. One more time, cookies. And before we continue, I want you to take into account that all Englishes are valid, okay, are equally valid. So there are differences in pronunciation. My English in particular tends to be more Americanized, okay, so like if you can identify it with any of the big strengths of English in the world, you would say I speak American English, because that is the English that I grew up listening, and most of my teachers spoke American English. I live in the States, so I'm more familiar with that English than with any other English in the world. Taking that into account, I want to make emphasis that in the United States and Canada, okay, I don't know about the other countries, but in the United States and Canada, the difference between crackers and cookies is that crackers are salty while cookies are sweet. That is the difference. I think in England, they just say crackers, but I might be wrong. So I just wanted to put that out there so you understand the difference between vocabulary of different type of Englishes. Okay, the following word is pizza, one of my favorites, pizza. So let's say it again, pizza. Okay, then we have meat. Meat. Make sure that T you are pronouncing is explosive, okay? So one more time, I want you to hear what I'm saying and then you repeat. So meat. Okay. The next one is fish. One more time. Fish. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is our last vocabulary word. Oh no, we have peanut butter. Peanut butter, that is an American staple, okay? They love peanut butter in the United States. So once again, peanut butter. apples, apples. Okay, let's continue. Oranges, oranges. Bananas, bananas. Chocolate bar. Again, chocolate bar. Ice cream. And who else loves ice cream just like as much as I do? Again, ice cream. Chocolate fudge. Chocolate fudge. So before we continue, this is like the best picture I could find, but if you are not familiar with what chocolate fudge is, it's pretty much a chocolate sauce that you put on ice cream. Okay, so every time I get ice cream, I need some chocolate fudge on top. And so in case you didn't know, that's what chocolate fudge means. Okay, so that was it for our vocabulary, and now we are going to start covering our grammar. So for grammar, as I said before, we have count and non-count nouns. So again, count and non-count nouns. So let's go with the definition. Well, first of all, what a noun is. A noun is an object, okay? It can be tangible. Tangible is something that you can touch, or it can be intangible. So for example, understanding is not tangible, right? Because you cannot touch understanding. Understanding is an abstract concept that is in your head, but you cannot touch it, you cannot see it, but you know it's there. So that will be intangible, and that is a noun. Okay, so people are nouns, objects are nouns, animals are nouns, and all that type of stuff. So since we are talking about food, this first part in my grammar explanation is going to be food related, and then we are going to have a trivia to kind of switch the topic a little bit so you can see that this grammar is not only used or restricted or limited to food, but it covers a wide range of topics. Okay, so let's go with our explanation of what a count versus a non-count noun is. So first, we have count nouns. And we have some key, concepts here. So it says a count noun is a noun that can form a plural noun. This is key. Count nouns have a plural form. Okay, so if you can count it, it can be, that word can be plural. Okay, usually you can just add an S. There are different rules to forming the plural in English, but the basic one, let's say, or the most used one is just adding that S at the end of the word. So a noun that can form a plural noun, that is a count noun. In the singular, it can be used with an indefinite article. So we have an apple, and that an is an indefinite article, okay? So I'm gonna write here the indefinite articles. We have a, right? And we have an. So if it is a count noun, it means that you can use an indefinite article in the singular form in front of the noun. So in the singular form, we have an apple. In the plural form, because count nouns can become plural, we say the apples, or some apples, or 2, 3, 4 apples, okay? Now, what is a non-count noun that is the opposite of count noun? So a non-count or non-count nouns, as the name indicates, these nouns cannot be counted. cannot be counted. They have no plural form. So we can go, when we can count, when we have count nouns, we can go from apple to apples. But here, when we have non-count nouns, they do not have plural form. Okay, no plural form. So we usually use expressions like a little, a lot, some. For example, I want some popcorn. We do not say I want 2 popcorns, I want a popcorn, I want 3 pop. That's not correct. Okay, so we say I want some popcorn. We can use any of the expressions that you have here, right? We can use any of these expressions. So we can say I want a little bit of popcorn, I want a lot of popcorn, I want some popcorn. Okay, so that is basically the difference between count and non-count. Count have a singular and a plural form. Non-count does not have a plural form, and we have to use certain expressions like a little, a lot, and some to express the amount of this item that we want. Okay, so I have some more explanations, and this is what you have in the PDF document that I sent you. So we have the explanation, and then we have some examples, okay? So it says count and non-count nouns, some versus any. Nouns in English can be divided into count and non-count nouns. Count nouns are nouns that you can count and that have a plural form. We already talked about this. And we have some examples here. So we have 2 bananas, 3 babies, 6 children, or there are 10 oranges in the park. Remember that last time during our session 2 that we covered in the city, we talked about there is and there are, right? And we say there are is for plural, there is for singular. Besides, we use there are, since it's plural, we use there are with count nouns unless we are talking about only one. So I say there is an apple because it's only one apple. But if I have many apples, I'm going to say there are and the number. So there are 10 apples. Okay. However, when we are using non-count nouns, we can only use there is. Okay. So let's continue. How many? How many is the question for count nouns. We cannot use how many with non-count nouns, and this is important. So let's read the explanation that we have here, and it says, how many asks about the number. Okay, so when we have the question, how many, the answer has to be a number. The answer has to be quantity. Okay, so it asks questions about plural count nouns only. This means, again, that we cannot use how many with non-count nouns. Okay, so we can only ask questions about plural count nouns, sorry. And we have 2 examples. So example number 1, how many apples are there? The answer has to be a number. The answer has to reflect quantity. So a possible answer for this question could be 8. Okay, so how many apples are there? 8. And then, how many children are in the park? There are 10 children. So, again, you see how we are recycling the same grammar that we covered last class. So, we have how many for count nouns, but we are using there are there. Remember that we have to switch the position of these 2 words to ask the question. Okay, let's continue with our grammar explanation, guys. So we have non-count nouns, okay? And it says non-count nouns are nouns that you can not count or that you can't count. So again, they don't have a plural form. They will always come with a singular verb. And I have here some examples. Cheese, you cannot count cheese. Milk, chocolate, water. And you might say, well, Miss Diana, but we can count these items. So the main difference between a count and a non-count noun, and how you know that one is countable and the other one is uncountable, is that with the countable nouns, you can say 1, 2, 3. So you can say one marker. Ooh, let's go back. I'm sorry. Ooh, my bad. So you can say 1 marker, 2 markers, 3 markers. Okay, that is something that you can say with countable nouns. With uncountable nouns like cheese, milk, chocolate, and water, you need to use a unit of measure. Okay, you need to say how much of that item you want. So for cheese, you say, for example, a slice of cheese, or a pound of cheese, or 50 grams of cheese. You cannot say 1 cheese, 2 cheese, 3 cheeses, okay? Unless you are talking about types of cheese. And then the noun there, like I said, compound noun, because type would be part of the noun, so type of cheese, okay? Then we have milk, and this is a tip that I can give you. Uncountable liquids are uncountable nouns, okay? You cannot count liquids. You need a unit of measure. So for milk and water, we can do milk and water together that are liquids. You say a glass of water, or a glass of milk, a liter of water, or a liter of milk, okay, or a gallon or something like that. So that will be the unit of measure. And then for chocolate, if it's like powder, then you would say 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, or I don't know, 2 ounces. Or if it's solid, then you say 1 chocolate bar, 2 chocolate bars, and like that. So you do need a unit of measure, okay? And then we have, there is some cold water to drink. So it says come with a singular, when we go back to the explanation, it says non-count nouns are nouns that you can't count. They don't have a plural form. They will always come with a singular verb. So the singular verb in this case is. There is some cold water to drink, okay? Next, how much? So how much, just like how many, asks about the quantity. It asks questions about non-count nouns only. How many for things you can count, how much for things you cannot count. And now you say, oh, Miss Diana, but when we talk about money, we use how much. And money is something you can count. So yes, money is something you can count, but you need a unit of measure. What is that unit of measure? The currency. So for example, in the United States, the currency is dollar. So you don't say, I have 1 money, 2 monies, 3 monies. You have to say, I have $1, $2, $3. Okay, so you need that unit of measure. So we have the examples. The first example is how much ice cream is there? And the answer can be lots. And then you have how much chocolate is there? And the answer could be there's lots of chocolate. So here, again, the answer has to be different because well, with how many, the answer can be an exact number. With how much, it cannot be. If you want something that is exact, you would need an exact unit of measure, okay, but not an exact number. Or you can use, again, some of these expressions that we talked about before, like some, a little, a lot, lots, okay? Next, some means a number or a quantity. We use some with both plural count nouns and with non-count nouns. Some is used in affirmative sentences. This is important. Some is an expression that we can use to talk about a quantity. Let's say a quantity that is not specific, okay, is not a lot, but it's not a little. It's like in between, maybe enough, okay? So some, we have some. And this is something that we can use both with count and non-count nouns. But we can only use it when we have an affirmative sentence. This is important for affirmative sentences only. And we have two examples, one with a count noun and one with a non-count noun. So the example with the count noun is there are some apples here. Remember that apples is countable, and you know that because the noun itself is plural. So there are some apples, and then we have there's some milk too. There's is the contraction of there is. So either one is correct. So you can say there is some milk or there's some milk. Next, we use any, important. We use any instead of some in negative sentences and in most questions. So some and any could be the same or the opposite. But we never use some in the question. So if you want to ask about a quantity, you can include any in the question, but you can never use some in the question. So, and when we want to make a negative statement, we have to use any and never some, okay? So for example, there isn't any chocolate and there aren't any cookies. So again, any in negative sentences is something, in negative and in questions is an expression that we can use for both count and uncount nouns. Okay, so there isn't any chocolate and there aren't any cookies. Is there any cheese? No, there isn't any. Next, we have here some examples. So we have plural count. We have a column first that says affirmative sentences in an example, negative sentences in an example, questions with any, and questions with how many or how much. And then we have two other columns. One says plural count nouns come with a plural verb, and then we have non-count nouns come with a singular verb. So let's start with affirmative sentences with a count noun. So some and many. Some is a number, many it's a lot. So there are some or there are many apples. And with non-count nouns, we have some, a quantity, and much, that it's a lot. So there's some cheese. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you're seeing that. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that interruption. I'm going to go back to sharing. Okay. Okay, so negative sentences with any. There aren't any cookies, and with non-count, there isn't any chocolate. Then we have questions for count and non-count nouns with any. So are there any apples or is there any ice cream? And finally, we have questions. So remember that how many is limited to count nouns, plural count nouns, and how much is limited to non-count nouns. So how many cookies are there? And the answer, 10. And how much milk is there? And the answer is a lot. And here, very important, because you might be asking, Ms. Diana, what is the difference between lots, lots of, and a lot? So there's no difference, okay? I think it depends on the preference of the speaker, okay? But for example, in the States, I have found that a lot is more common, okay? So lots, lots of, and a lot of mean the same, a lot. We use them with both plural nouns and with non-count nouns. So for example, there are lots of cookies and there's lots of ice cream. We are going to now watch the video with some of these nouns, like count nouns and non-count nouns in use. So I'll leave you to this. It's just 2 minutes and then you'll come back to me.
I'm hungry. Let's see. What's there to eat and to drink? There's some bread.
There's some bread.
There's some cheese.
There's some cheese.
There's some milk.
There's some
There's
milk.
some water too.
There's some water.
There are some apples.
There are
How
some
many apples?
How many apples?
There are 8 apples.
There are 8 apples.
There are some oranges.
There are some oranges.
How many?
How many?
9. There are 9 oranges.
There are 9
And there are some
oranges.
bananas.
And there are some bananas.
How many?
How many?
10 bananas.
10 bananas. There are 10 bananas.
Cookies. Are there any cookies?
Are there any cookies?
Sorry, there aren't any cookies.
There aren't any cookies.
Okay, is there any chocolate?
Is there any chocolate?
I'm looking for some. There is some chocolate.
There is some chocolate.
Is there any ice cream?
Is there any ice
Yes,
cream?
there is.
Yes, there is.
How much? There's lots of ice cream.
How much? There's lots.
And there's an onion.
And there's an onion. Ooh.
Okay, let's eat.
Okay, guys, with that we're finished. Let's go with our trivia. So, of course, you are not going to, well, I'm not going to be able to hear your questions, but the idea is to, I'm going to ask some questions using how many, okay? And the idea is that you use a separate tab or something to, to find the answer and then try to give me the answer using the structure that we are using. That is, there are, okay, for count or uncount. So, the first one is how many cardinal directions are there? Okay, how many cardinal directions are there? Cardinal directions are plural, okay? And I'll give you a few seconds to try to find the answer and then I will share the answer with you. Okay, so the answer is 4. And the complete answer with the structure is there are 4 cardinal directions. If you are not sure which these directions are, we have north, south, east, and west. Those are the 4 cardinal directions, okay? So let's go with our second question. Our second question is how many planets are there in the solar system? If you don't know the answer, I'll give you a few seconds to try to find it online. And try to build the answer using the structure that we are using, okay? So the answer is there are, because planets are countable, there are 8 planets in the solar system. So before we used to say there were 9, okay? We used to say 9, that was the answer, but then remember that plural is not a planet no more. Okay, so there are 8. The planets are not in order, but the planets are Earth, Jupiter, Neptune, Mars, Saturn, Venus, Uranus, and Mercury. Next question. How many chambers are there in a cow's stomach? Do you know this answer? Okay, so cows have only one stomach. So there is only one stomach in a cow. but their stomach is so big and their digestive process, like it's so lengthy that they have different chambers in their stomach to process the food. Okay, so how many chambers are there in a cow's stomach? I'll give you some seconds. And the answer is 4. There are 4 chambers in a cow's stomach. Okay, next question. Our next question is, how many oceans are there on the planet? Do you know? Okay, the answer is 5. So if you said 5, you got that answer correct. So the answer is there are 5 oceans in the world or on the planet. What are those 5 oceans? Do you guys know? So we have the 2 largest ones that are Atlantic. Well, Pacific is the largest one. We have Pacific and we have Atlantic. Then we have Indian, Arctic, and Antarctic, or some people call it Southern. Okay? Next, how many continents are there on the planet? Do you know this answer? How many continents are there? Okay, so this answer is controversial. Some people say 5, other people say 7, but regardless of the number you have, the answer is gonna, or the structure that we are gonna use to answer this question is there are. Okay, so there are 7 continents. And the continents that we can identify with, say 7, are as follows: Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Antarctica, Europe, and Australia. Those are, well, Australia, that actually Australia is not a continent, Oceania. That is Australia, New Zealand, and all those, like the Polynesia and all those islands around it. Okay, next. How many days are there in a leap year? Do you guys know this? How many days are there in a leap year? A leap year, if you don't understand what it is, a leap year, it's a year with 1 extra day. February usually has 28 days, and there is a year every 4 years where it has 29 instead. That would be a leap year when February has that extra day. So how many days are there in a leap year if it's just 1 more day? So guys, if you say there are 366 days, you are correct. So congratulations. The next question is, how many months are there in a year? How many? That is correct. There are 12 months in a year. Next, how many hours are there in a day? Very easy. So the answer is there are 24. There are 24 hours in a day. Next, how many minutes are there in an hour? Very easy, you guys. So the answer is what? Very good. There are 60 minutes in an hour. Next question is, how many teeth are there in the mouth of an adult? And I say an adult because, well, when we are born, we have no teeth, and then we start getting some, and then when we become adults, like after 18 years old or around 18, we get all our teeth. Some people don't even get them all, but how many? For an adult, how many? Usually, like the regular number. Do you guys know? Okay, so the answer is there are 32 teeth in an adult mouth, okay? There are 32 teeth in an adult mouth? Okay, the next question is, how many bones are there in the human body? How many bones? And the answer is, there are 206 bones. 206 bones in the human body. Next question, how many eggs are there in a dozen? How many eggs are there in a dozen? And the answer, you guys, is there are 12. Okay. Next question, how many sides are there in a triangle? Very easy question and very easy and quick answer. So there are 3. Next question, how many sides are there in a circle? And the answer is, there is no sides in a circle. There is no sides in a circle. How many strings are there in a guitar? There are 6 strings. How many rings are there in the Olympics logo? Very easy because you have the picture right there. So there are 5 rings in the Olympics logo. And this is why, going back to the question about continents, this is why it's so controversial. Supposedly, each of the rings represents a continent. Okay, so the Olympics logo has 5 rings, but Americans say there are 7 continents. So that's, I would say that's part of the controversy. Okay, so thank you, you guys. That was all for today for my questions. Please study with your PDF that I sent you. And the other thing that I would like you to do is, if possible, let me stop this right here. Let me stop sharing. If possible, I would like you to go back to the vocabulary that I presented you with. As a matter of fact, I can open that right now and just do this with you again. But I would like you to go back to the presentation, you know, like at the very beginning, when I was presenting you with the vocabulary and rice and milk and water and all this. And a good activity would be for you guys to identify whether those words are countable or uncountable nouns. So let's try to do 5, like the first 5, and then I'll let you try to identify the rest of them on your own. So let me go back to screen sharing. Okay, so I'm sharing screen now. Let's present. Okay. So remember that I gave you this key about liquids. So all liquids are non-count. So milk is non-count. The next one, we have bread. What do you think bread is, guys? So if you said non-count, it is correct. Bread is non-count. How can you count bread? You have to say a slice of bread, a loaf of bread. Okay, you cannot say 1 bread, 2 breads, 3 breads. Or you can say a piece of bread. Okay, then we have cheese. This is the third one, cheese. So again, non-count. You say a slice of cheese, a piece of cheese, some cheese, a little bit of cheese, a lot of cheese. We already talked about this while I was doing the presentation, so I think this is clear. Then we have fruit. Okay, fruit is countable. Okay, and so you say fruits. I like a lot of fruits. And also each of the fruits are countable as well. So you have watermelon, a watermelon, 2 watermelons, 3 watermelons. We already covered apples in the presentation and we covered oranges. So fruit is plural. And then we have vegetables. This is our 5th one, I think. So again, vegetables or veggies is plural. You can see that the name itself is plural already. And here we have lettuce, we have pumpkin, we have tomato and carrots, and they are all plural. Well, not plural, they can be plural. So thank you very much, you guys. With this, we finish. I hope you have seen how important it is to understand the difference between there is and there are, the differences, and that you can see that we can apply this grammar to pretty much our daily life when we're speaking, right? Last time we included this when we're talking about the city and places in the city, and now we are including this grammar to talk about food. So thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed our session today, and see you next time with the same topic. So we're going to still be talking about food, but the grammar is going to be different. So thank you very much, guys. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.